What's going on, home studio engineers? Thank you so much for checking out the Home Recording Network, and welcome back for day 22 of this series, 30 Days to a Better Home Studio Mix, in which we are running through this song right here.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back into Destin's unaware just what will be done. Looking for treason and overtake the throne and sink to the bottom on our own.
So up until now, we've been kind of running through this, how I would typically mix a song like this, and we've gone over some pre-mix considerations. We've gone over the drums in this mix. We've gone through the bass and guitar, and then we've kind of set up our final mix bus. So we're now, mixing into all the plugins on our master bus. At this point, what I want to talk about is my vocal chain. As you're going to see here, there are a lot of plugins on my vocal tracks, and I feel that those are the tracks that should really hold the most plugins because they're simply the most important part of the mix. So I pay a lot of attention to my vocals, and I throw a lot of plugins on there, and they're all doing a different job. But in this video, I want to run through the order of the plugins and what a typical vocal chain looks like. And we're also going to go through some of the effects on the vocals and some of the effect sends in the song overall. Now, I'm not going to go over all the settings on all the plugins. I'll be doing most of that in the videos that follow this one, but this is just kind of a setup to the vocal portion of this series. Now, guys, if this video helps you out at all, don't forget to like and subscribe and click that notification bell so that I can just reach more engineers like yourself that are out there that may need some help or assistance. Now, let's just take a listen to the main vocal in the chorus here.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
And maybe I'll just kind of bypass all the effect sends for now so you can hear the vocal.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
Yeah, and this time I'll just play it and I'll bypass all the plugins on the chain so you can hear what they started off sounding like.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back into oblivion.
Yeah, and there's quite a difference there. And this is what I mean about using a lot of plugins. And you hear me speak about making big moves and not being shy with some of the moves you make. That's what you need to do in the home recording world to get a professional mix. You need to really push the limits because we're not recording through a lot of the pristine gear that you see the big guys recording through. You might not see Andrew Sheps have 8 plugins on his vocals, but the tracks that he's getting are much higher quality than the tracks we're usually mixing at home. So a little extra work just needs to be put in on our end. Let's just walk through the chain. So first always comes any pitch correction software. I use Melodyne, but it really doesn't matter what you use. I don't care if you use the Waves Tune or the Auto Tune plugin. Whatever it is, it should come first. We want our pitch to be corrected before we are EQing or compressing or anything like that. So we have Melodyne first, and that's doing all our pitch correction. And then we go into a little bit of EQ. The first thing I want to do after my vocals been pitch corrected is take out any buildup or any frequencies that I'm not liking. So we're doing a lot of little cuts here with this visual EQ. And next, after I take out all the frequencies that I'm not liking, doing any cleanup or anything like that, that's when I hit my favorite SSL channel. Now with the SSL, this is where I'm doing all of my boosting. And as you can see here, I do have some pretty hefty boosts going on. And that's because that's simply what we need to do when we're working out of our homes. I don't care if it's a kick drum or a vocal. We're probably going to need to do a lot of boosting. Again, because most of us don't have the equipment to really take care of this stuff on the way in while we're recording. So we really have to shape the tone in the mixing stage. And guys, I really don't care what plugins you're using. The SSL is one of my favorite EQs, and that might not be your favorite EQ, and that's completely fine. The point here is that I'm just showing you my chain, and I don't expect you to copy this. You can if you'd like, but the point here is to eventually make your own vocal chain that you like, so that you know in every mix, this is my chain, this is my vocal sound, this is how I get there. And that's what I've done over the years by taking snippets from other people and changing around plugins as I see fit. It's just all about finding your own sound, like I talked about in one of the first videos where we went over the mix template. So I know that this is what my chain's going to look like on basically every vocal that I mix. Now, after I've basically EQ'd this vocal how I like, that's when I go to some compression. And my favorite vocal compressor is the CLA 76, which is what we have on here. And we'll be getting deep into this, and I'll be showing you more about this in the compression video that will follow in a couple days. But after that, my vocal should be basically how I want it EQ'd, how I want it compressed. And usually the compressor will have some sort of effect on the vocal, on the EQ spectrum specifically. So maybe you have a ton of top end or low end before compression. Well, the compressor is going to have some sort of effect on that. And that's why I have the next plugin. Now let's open up Virtual Mix Rack here, and the plugin we're looking at is Revival. This has earned a spot on my vocal chain, and I use it in every mix because it's so easy to use. It's a high and low end harmonic exciter. So if you need more low end, you turn the thickness knob up. If you need more top, you turn the shimmer up. It's very easy to use. So if you don't want to pull out an EQ plugin and search for the areas to boost, this is a really simple plugin to use to get a little more top or a little bit more bottom. Real quick, I'll just mess with the shimmer so you can hear how pleasing this is on the ears.
These kings and queens, they all fall, headless back into oblivion.
This is just such an easy plugin to use, like I said. And if your singer needs to be on top of the mix a little bit more, that shimmer is just a real quick way to do it. So that's why I use it in most of my vocal chains. Like I said, it's really earned a spot on there. Now, after we've EQ'd our vocals and really shaped the vocal sound, we're gonna need some de-essing. So since we're recording digitally, there's very harsh S's in the tracks we record usually. And the EQing that we've done up until this point is just going to bring them out even more. So to take care of those S's, obviously we need a De-Esser. So this is where my De-Esser comes in the chain. Lately, I've been using just the FabFilter Pro DS specifically on the male wideband setting. If you guys need any help on this stuff, let me know. But there's tons of tutorials out there about using a De-Esser and specifically what it does. So the next two plugins are actually going to be in another video, but right after the De-Esser, I throw in a multi-band for some additional transparent compression. And then after that comes my limiter, which is last in the chain. And again, we'll talk more about that in one of the videos to follow. Lastly, I usually have some sort of saturation plugin or saturation emulation, something to dirty up the signal a bit. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in one of the videos to follow. But in the verse, I have the virtual tape machine at the end of the chain, which sounds awesome on vocals. But in the chorus, it's actually something different. And that's a little trick I like to use to almost excite my chorus vocals. But I'll have a video specifically on that. And I think that's going to be on day 26. So make sure and check that out. So now that you have an idea of what my plugin chain looks like and the reason why I put the plugins in the order that they are, let's take a look at some of the vocal effect sends in this song. The first one I want to go over is kind of a parallel vocal send or a parallel vocal track. So let's go over this bus 17 here. And this goes to my Vox thick send. And what this does a really good job at is helping your vocals sit above the mix. So we have just one plugin on there. And what this is doing is first driving the signal a little bit, distorting the signal to differentiate it from the actual vocal track. And then we're doing some EQ here. And if we just solo the Vox thick send and listen to it, you can hear that it's much different sounding than the original vocal track.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
Yeah, so it's just a lot brighter and it's almost annoyingly bright, but we just feather this in along with the actual vocal track. And like I said, it's kind of a parallel technique to add some more high end to your vocals. The EQ starts with boosting a ton at 15K, which is the real high end of the singer's voice.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
And then we also take out a bunch of 4K, which is usually the harsh area in the singer's voice.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back into oblivion.
Like I said, the 4K area is usually not a pleasing frequency area for singers. It's, like I said, it's the harshest area of the voice. So we take a bunch of that out here so we don't have too much of that area building up. And by taking a bunch out here, we're also just differentiating this effect send from the actual vocal track. And then, of course, we have our revival again, just boosting a ton of that shimmer. And then once you have that all set up, then you could just mix this in with the actual vocal track. So we do that by just taking the fader down and bringing this up and seeing how much of it we want in the actual mix.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back into oblivion.
And of course, we'd want to be mixing this in with all the music in there. We never really want to be doing anything in solo, but I hope that shows you guys what a difference a send like this can make. Can really get your singer to be on top of the mix so that every word is heard, which is, again, super important for any of your songs. We also have in here just a mono Vox delay.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
And that's just a quarter note delay. I'm using the Echo Boy, but really whatever delay plugin you have will work. And lastly, we have our reverb.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
And for that, I'm just using the Lustrous Plates reverb. But again, guys, it doesn't matter what plugins you're using. Find the ones that you like and use them. It's really the techniques here that I'm trying to point out. So below the reverb, we have, of course, like I've talked about a lot, the high-end roll-off of the reverb, which I do think is super important. If we want a really big reverb sound that's not going to clutter up our mix, I just feel that you should always be rolling off the top end, because the high end of our reverb is really just junk that's going to get in the way of the clarity of our mix. So usually I'll just roll off to about 8K or so. But if I kind of exaggerate this and bring this down to about 4K or so, you can tell that when I bring this EQ in, the reverb just sounds so much further away, which is the effect that we're going for.
These kings and queens, they'll fall, headless back into oblivion.
With the EQ in, it just sounds so much more distant, which is going to push this reverb further back in the mix, which is actually a good thing, because on pro songs, think about it, you don't hear the reverb front and center. It's usually tucked back in the background, and this is how they do it, by putting a filter up on the high end here. It's not a bad thing to sort of hide your reverb a little bit, because a song that has a ton of it on there, it's just going to sound super amateur, which is obviously not what we're going for. And I know you're not going for that if you're watching this video. That is my vocal chain and some of the effect sends in this mix. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But I hope to see you back for day 23, in which we're going to go kind of in detail on the EQ areas for the voice and just talk about how we EQ'd some of the vocals in this mix. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide with your go-to EQ and compression settings for all your tracks. And also be sure to register for my free online mix training that I hold a couple times a week, so that you can learn how to make radio quality music from your home without breaking the bank.